While we deal with the technical difficulties, we just wanted to acknowledge all the partners. This is a group effort. Can we say group? Group. And group. Can we say group? Group. Thank you. The John Lewis Transformational Coalition for Justice, Black Political Empowerment Project, League of Women Voters, Pittsburgh Higher Ground, VEEEM, Voter Empowerment, Education, and Enrichment. We need enrichment. Can we say enrichment? Movement, and we need a movement. With all that's going on in America today. APA, Alliance for Police Accountability, Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly, the NAACP Pittsburgh branch coming back strong, and the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh. So let's give a hand to all of our partners. If you see someone beside you, behind you, in front of you don't know, while we work on technicalities.
They're good. They're good.
We ready?
They're good. They're good.
Looks like we're still.
You're live right now.
We're live. But they're not. For those of you who are watching this live, thank you. My name is Tim Stevens, Chairman and CEO of B-pep, the Black Political Empowerment Project. And our mission is that we vote in what? Every election. Now that means there are no off-year elections. E. Richard Phipps with 2 P's and 1 S was active with us for many years, as well as with Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly. He used to get upset when people would talk about off-year elections. The reason why he got upset about a lot of people go off and not vote in certain elections. We cannot just wait for a presidential election. We cannot just wait when there is a black person running for president. We can't wait in some elections for black candidates, because in some elections there are no black candidates for certain offices. Our theory is there's always one candidate more in our interest than is another. That's what we have to look for. Who is in our interest? Who will meet the needs, the aspirations, expectations, and needs of the African American community and our marginalized communities. We vote in each and every election. It needs to be not a slogan, but a reality. We wanted to have 2 of our younger folks in our collective effort to introduce our extraordinary facilitators. One is from B-pep, been with us for the last 1.5 years. Our B-pep community organizer, our B-pep community organizer, Roy Blankenship Jr. And I don't even know him anymore. Looking so good. And Marin Formley, one of our young adult leaders in the movement. She is the founder of VEEEM, Voter Empowerment, Education, and Enrichment Movement. We're going to go in reverse of normal. We're going to have a male introduce our first MC or facilitator, and then Marin will introduce the second. So they'll go back to back. Roy Blankenship Jr.
Hello. Mr. Bio is Shandy Chapman. Ms. Chapman is a multi-Emmy award-winning anchor and reporter for Pittsburgh Action News 4. Shandy's 5 Mid-Atlantic Emmy wins and close to 20 nominations in just a few years have highlighted breaking news, weather, combating the heroin epidemic, confronting bullying in schools, fighting racial inequality, and uncovering the culture behind our favorite cuisine. They have also focused on her community service and her skills as a writer. When Shandy worked in Allentown, Pennsylvania, she was given a proclamation from the city for being the first African-American female anchor at WFMZ TV and earned 2 National Association of Black Journalists Salutes to Excellence Awards on race relations. Shandy has won numerous Associated Press and State Broadcast Association awards, including Best TV Personality. Her reporting has also been featured on national television shows. Shandy has held positions in the industry that include producing, editing, shooting, web producing, assignment desk duties, and managing. Shandy started working at WPBPA TV in Pittsburgh while finishing up her degree in communication at the University of Pittsburgh. There she worked on the assignment desk and produced newscasts. Then it was off to Youngstown, Ohio, where she was producer and / reporter. Shandy also worked in Steubenville, Ohio at WTOV TV, where she was a full-time reporter and had the opportunity to fill in anchoring. Then she decided to go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where she anchored several newscasts, learned to shoot and edit. She was on the investigative team and was an education reporter. Before coming back to her home state, Shandy was a morning anchor and a consumer reporter for WPBPA TV in Columbus, Georgia. Shandy enjoys engaging the community by visiting schools and universities to talk to students about journalism. Can you give it up for Ms. Shandy?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I have the pleasure of introducing to you my sister Greek, Lynn Hayes Freeland, who says she's kind of retired. A local fixture in Pittsburgh media, Lynn Hayes Freeland made history in January 2019 when she became the first full-time African-American to host a daily talk show on KDKA Radio, the nation's first radio station. The move came after more than 40 years at KDKA TV, where Lynn held a wide variety of positions. Lynn began her broadcast career as the producer of The Roy Fox Show on KDKA Radio in 1976. A year later, she moved to KDKA TV, where she held a variety of positions, including field producer for Evening Magazine and producer of a variety of other public affairs programs, including Weekend Youth Magazine Vibrations and the station's annual Children's Hospital Telethon. In 1989, Lynn moved to the KDKA TV News Department as a general assignment reporter. Her assignments included covering the news of the day to the U.S. visit of South African President Nelson Mandela. In addition to covering the news of the day, Lynn was the face of KDKA TV's Waiting Child segment for more than 15 years. This bi-weekly presentation was designed to find adopted homes for special needs or hard-to-place children. During her tenure at the station, nearly 70% of the children featured on television were placed with forever families. That's amazing. Lynn has also worked closely with Dollar Bank as the face of their highly successful Mortgages for Mothers home buying seminar designed to help women in the Pittsburgh area become first-time home buyers. In addition to Nelson Mandela, some of Lynn's most memorable guests on her TV show have included Rosa Parks, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Oprah Winfrey, and the controversial Minister Louis Farrakhan. In addition to the TV show on Sunday mornings, you can catch her Monday through Friday from noon to 3 on KDKA Radio 1020 AM for what she likes to call having lunch with Lynn. A native Pittsburgher, Lynn is a member of, I'm gonna say it like y'all, Alpha, Kappa Alpha, sorority, incorporated. Involved on the boards of several nonprofit organizations, and her work has been recognized by both local and national organizations. Please welcome both of our facilitators for the evening, Lynn Hayes Freeland and Shandy Cox.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I am, in fact, semi-retired. But part of the beauty of being semi-retired is you get to pass the baton to those coming on. So I'm thrilled to sit here with Candy and pass this baton to her. I just want to do a couple things, and I am literally following her lead here tonight, just so we're clear. This is a meet the candidates. This will not be a debate. We're not looking for any heated conversations or that kind of thing. It's an opportunity for you to hear who these candidates are so that you can make informed decisions when you go to the polls. Keep in mind, if you only watch advertisements or read the little flyers, you only get a snippet. This is your opportunity to look them in the eye, have them look you in the eye so that you have a better understanding of who is on the ballot.
Thank you, Lynn. I mean, considering that when I was an intern, Lynn pulled me into the track room and said, here, this is how you track. So me sitting here beside her and her saying she's passing the baton to me, okay, holding back tears here. So I'm happy to be here with the legendary Lynn Hayes Freeland. And like she said, this isn't a debate. We're not going to be moderators. We're going to be facilitators. So you'll get to know these candidates. And this is called Meet the Candidates Community Conversation, and that's what we're going to do here tonight. So the event is sponsored, like Tim said, by the Black Political Empowerment Project, the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh, and other nonpartisan sponsors. So tonight, you'll get a chance to hear from U.S. Senate candidates, those running for lieutenant governor, state representative candidates, and others. Now here's some rules. Listen up. This is important to listen to this. Tonight, you'll get a chance to hear from these candidates in 5 minutes. They'll have 5 minutes to introduce themselves and answer 2 questions that were provided by organizers. Why are you running for this position, and what background and experience would you bring to it? Now, Lynn and I discussed this before this event, and with the recent gun violence that's been happening here in our city and across the country, we feel it's important to ask these candidates about what they plan to do about the violence that's been happening in the United States and in Pittsburgh. So we're going to ask that question to it as well. And all candidates will be timed.
I also meant to say earlier, let's take a moment, check your phone, make sure it's on vibrate or silence. We do have some audio challenges in here, so we're going to ask any conversation that needs to happen should happen out in the hallway. It should not happen in the main room. At this point, I'd like to introduce Judge Cheryl Allen. She is the surrogate for Kathy Barnett, who is running on the Republican ticket for the U.S. State Senator. U.S. Senator.
Thank you, everyone, and on behalf of Kathy Barnett, I really appreciate your invitation for her to introduce herself. Unfortunately, she had to be elsewhere in the state. Kathy Barnett is a very dynamic woman. You know, she was born and raised on a pig farm in Alabama, not too far from Mobile. Her mother, at the time of her birth, was only 12 years old. She came from a very, very poor family, and she jokingly says that they were so poor that they couldn't afford the second O in poor, so she said, we were just poor. But Kathy was able to be the first person in her family to graduate from college. She spent 10 years in the military. She went to officer candidate school. She has served in corporate America. She's a commentator. She's a wife. She's a mother of 2 children. And she's running for the U.S. Senate because she is deeply concerned about the direction that our country is going and the kind of country we are going to leave for our children. She's very concerned about the education system, the health system. She's concerned about our First Amendment rights being eroded. And she's concerned about the fact that very often people are elected to Congress or the Senate by their constituents, but when they get into these positions, they often are more committed to serving their political party or government officials or the elite than they are about serving their constituents. And so Kathy is a person, when you consider her background and what she brings to this office, she brings her life experience. She brings her experience of knowing what it means to suffer, of what it means to have to go without, what it means to raise children in this challenging world, what it means to be a woman who is able to raise her children, take care of her family, and take care of a full-time job. And so she's a very active person. Very often people will think, well, you're running for the Senate, maybe you should have some governmental experience. Well, she does have governmental experience because she has studied government extensively. And I am convinced, from what I've seen, we have people who've been in Congress for 50 years, 40 years, and what have they done? And so I believe that you will be served well if you vote for Kathy Barnett. Now, with regard to the uptick in violence, or the increase in violence in our city as well as our nation, I can tell you that I served in juvenile court a total of 25 years, actually, 13 years as an assistant county solicitor and 12 years as a judge. I also served in the criminal court of Allegheny County. And I used to find myself in juvenile court often complaining because I would see mothers, I would see grandmothers, I would see aunts. Rarely did I see a father. And then one day, it occurred to me that children, young men who have fathers in their lives seldom come to juvenile court or criminal court. And I believe that the main problem in our community, the Black community, is fatherlessness. These young men, young boys, need fathers. And if Kathy Barnett is elected to this position, she will be a proponent for fatherhood programs, for father initiatives, because the most important thing, I believe, and I'll say it, is a relationship with the Heavenly Father first and foremost, and secondly, with a father. Programs do not change people. Relationships change people. And so she would be an advocate for empowering men, working with the churches, empowering men to help these young men because they need guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Ray Sosa.
Thank you, folks. It is an honor to be here. I want to thank B-pep and all the partners for allowing this to happen. It's an incredible opportunity, and I didn't mind the drive at all from Montgomery County. This is fabulous. So thank you. Folks, I wanted to start by describing what the lieutenant governor position actually does. How many people here know what the lieutenant governor position does? I'll tell you real quick. Okay, so the lieutenant governor position has very limited scope. Traditionally, it's used as a trampoline to higher office, but that's a disservice to Pennsylvania. So it is the president for Senate, and there you direct traffic. That's all that you are. You're a cop directing traffic, making sure that everybody has their fair chance to speak. Now, one of my platform items is chair for the Pardo San Pearl Board. It's also the chair for the emergency management system for the state. It also coordinates the county governments with the state of Pennsylvania, and it also finally connects the Pentagon to the state of Pennsylvania through the Military Community Enhancement Board. So, folks, I'd like to remind everybody that this is a job interview. So you have to match your resume to what the position actually does. Okay, it's very important. So what pushed me to run for this office for the second time is our emergency response in the state could be better. Okay, my wife lost 400 of her peers to COVID because as first responders, they had to reuse protective equipment. In the 6th largest economy in the US, that's a sin. Okay, and we lost 41,000 Pennsylvanians to COVID, and that's because there was no emergency management that made it happen for our people. Okay, and another thing is, I come from a second generation activist family when it comes to criminal justice reform. I'm a firm believer in meritorious commutations with a path to recovery for people that have paid their debt to society. We have to give them a second chance. We're sitting in 70% recidivism. 70% recidivism is impossible to budget, okay? And we're destroying our families. That has to end. So that being said, I've worked for 3 governors. I've been appointed by 3 governors in Pennsylvania. I've worked with task forces for governors Randell, Schweikert, and Rich. I've been a leader for 11 emergency management disaster task forces, 2 of them international. So while our incumbents are watching emergency disasters on CNN, I'm one of the people that gear up and go to places where nobody but the Red Cross wants to go. That's the kind of leadership we need at this point, and we need it now. Our infrastructure is crumbling. In Pittsburgh, 2 months ago, we had a bridge crumble in the same route of our president. Okay? And that's just one example. In Philadelphia, none of our bridges are safe. So that tells us that we cannot withstand a natural disaster at this particular point. Okay, so we need leadership. We need preparedness. And I'm prepared to do that from day one because I've done it already, appointed, not elected by 3 administrations. Okay, so that being said, I am a statesman. I have all the experience, and I'm the first Latino to ever be in the ballot for lieutenant governor in the history of the state. So we're very proud of that. So I want to tell you that this is, remind you that this is a job interview, and we should elect people based on abilities and resumes. Know how many endorsements you have, how much money you have, and who are your friends. So with that, please support Ray Sosa for Lieutenant Governor in 2022. Thank you so much.
When I put my sunglasses on, that's because they're the only ones I have. Just so we're clear. Now we're going to hear from the 2 Republican candidates for Lieutenant Governor, beginning with Christopher Frye.
Can you all hear me okay? Great. Thank you so much for inviting me to this event today. Thank you for having us and allowing us to speak and answer questions. I'm very happy to be here. Pittsburgh was my own stomping grounds when I was in grad school. Graduated at the University of Pittsburgh with a master's degree in social work with a concentration in community organizing and social administration. Spent 2 years in Pittsburgh and really enjoyed my time here before heading back to Newcastle, where I'm from, and started to work in nonprofit organizations, working with families, working with juveniles on probation, and also working in workforce development to help single mothers and individuals find jobs to support their lives and to create better opportunities for them and their families. I stand before you today as a father, I'm a husband, and I'm a proud son of a single mom who raised 4 kids. She was pregnant and had her first child at the age of 14, and then had 4 children before she turned 18. She was single. My father walked out on her when, in the story she tells us, she was left her in the rain with me in her arms and my younger sister still in her belly. And I'm proud to stand here before you and say that all 4 of her children, with tremendous faith, tremendous support from our churches and our community, have lived very successful lives and are continuing to raise now her 9 grandkids. After Easter, we realized that, I'll say wow one more time, please. After Easter, how wild that is to see just tremendous growth of a family and being able to build those supports and and do the same as raising our kids in our household. I stand here today, I'm the current mayor of Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I became the first black mayor in Newcastle in the city's 200-year history. Thank you. Thank you so much. I did not anticipate or plan on becoming a politician or getting into the political sphere. I was working in the community. I was very happy at the work that I was doing, supporting, again, workforce development and helping juveniles on probation live very constructive lives. I'm so proud to run a program that we only had 2% recidivism in our program. We can really help youth get into jobs, find housing, and to build families and work in our community. I decided to run because I saw that my community was continuing to go in a downward spiral. Newcastle is a Rust Belt community, like many areas throughout the Pittsburgh region and going up west in western Pennsylvania, continue to go in a downward spiral. And I just remember being in rooms kind of like this, being in the crowd and listening to presentations from, community officials and community organizers. And we always saw that there was a true need, a leadership need. And, again, with my background and the work that I had been doing for over 12 years, decided to do something about it. I jokingly say I drew the short straw when I did that. But I decided to run to really bring a type of leadership and a level of leadership that was really supportive of all. And that's servant leadership. One that doesn't need to be in the spotlight, one that doesn't look for glory in the work that we do, one that actually leads from behind or leads from a bottoms-up approach that really guides the force so we can be a better community altogether. Also, when I ran for mayor, one of my top priorities and my top platform points was building relationships. And many didn't understand why I used that as a platform point, because typically you hear, I'm going to cut taxes, or I'm going to fix infrastructure, I'm going to do all these things, but none of that truly matters unless we can truly build relationships. Build relationships with every group that's represented in our community, build relationships to really truly bring resolution to our problems. And I'm running for lieutenant governor based on those same principles. As you heard earlier, the lieutenant governor serves a very unique role in the government. It's not a legislative position, so it's not one for a representative, because we can't pass any laws, we can't write any laws. We can advocate for laws to support communities across the Commonwealth. It's also not an activist role, because doors can be shut on you instantly when you try to bring up a case. It is a true executive branch position. In my position as mayor, in my previous career, I was working to bring change in organizations. In Newcastle, I've cut our business tax. I haven't raised taxes on our people. We're supporting infrastructure in all the communities. Had a town hall meeting in the west side of our community just to, again, build support across the aisle and across our community to really help everybody. I'm running for lieutenant governor. Please visit my website, citizensforchrisfrye.com. All the information about me is on that website, so I thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.
Moving on to our next race, a couple of things we want to tell you about. We mentioned at the beginning, and it's actually a good time to mention it again because some of the candidates have joined us now. We're going to ask you in your remarks if you would also mention your thoughts, your perspective, your reflections on the uptick in violence that you're seeing and what your approach to that would be. And along that lines, tomorrow there's going to be a special meeting on violence. That's tomorrow, April the 20th. It happens at 2 p.m. at the Allegheny Center Alliance Church, which is located at 250 East Ohio Street.
And like Lynn mentioned, some of the candidates joined us, so I'm going to repeat those questions so they know exactly what they're talking about for 5 minutes. The first question is, why are you running for this position? The second one is, what background and experience would you bring to it? And since we talked about the recent violence that's been happening, with recent gun violence, what are your plans to reduce this issue when it comes to the city of Pittsburgh, the state, and the country? So moving on to PA Representative for District 19, Democrat, Ariel Abney, State Representative-elect, will be sworn in soon.
Good evening. State Representative Lutz, Arion, Andrew Abney. I want to thank you all for being here this evening. I want to thank all of the hosts for putting this together. I want to just start off by saying, first and foremost, as a father, I want to send my condolences, and my heart goes out to the families of the loved ones of the two young men and all of those who were affected by the shooting over this past weekend in the district. I know that I've been advocating and pushing forward, having conversations with some elected officials, some that are up here right now and others, on how we can try to address these issues. We know that these traumas that happen in our communities are something that impact people for their entirety of their lives. And so we need to get to a situation where we are not normalizing gun violence in our communities. And so for me, as your state representative, I've already been advocating for, we know that budget season is coming up in June, and I will continue to advocate for an increase in funding for the Pennsylvania gun reduction program that we have in the state, as well as to co-sponsor legislation that is currently sitting in committees to ensure that we can reduce gun violence within our Commonwealth of Pennsylvania here in the city of Pittsburgh. So I want to just say that first and foremost. Secondly, I want to welcome you all to the 19th District. It's good to have everybody here. Now, I see a lot of familiar faces who are in the audience this evening. But for those who do not know me, my background is I am a social worker. I'm a social worker by educational background and trade, similar to Chris. I have a master's degree in social work from Pitt. But I always tell people that I'm an untraditional social worker, where I tell folks that I live my life really at the intersection of politics, philanthropy, and now civil rights and civil justice. And so I have worked as a legislative assistant in the 19th District in the past. So I'm very familiar with the communities, very familiar with the neighborhoods, very familiar with the issues. I've been endeared to the public. I've also worked as a program officer at the Poise Foundation for about 3 years. Many people who know the Poise Foundation, it is the only African-American owned and operated community foundation in the country. It's located right here in Pittsburgh, where I played a role in giving out over $1 million in grants to nonprofit organizations that were working specifically in the Black community all across Allegheny County. And then I moved on to the job that I'm doing right now. Before I was elected, I was a state director for an organization called All Voting is Local. It is an election administration and voting rights organization that helps to expand access to the ballot and prevent anybody from having barriers to being able to vote. We know that voting rights are really under attack right now. And so for me, I take all those experiences in my professional career and my work as a social worker to this position as state representative. As a social worker, I've always been taught the importance of advocating for others. And so as your state representative, I will continue that advocacy on your behalf. You know, I always learned and understood as a social worker how policy impacts people's quality of life. And for me, one of the reasons why I'm running is because when I go around to different communities and different neighbors and knock on their doors, a theme that cuts across all of it is that a lot of people feel like they've been left out and left behind in this new Pittsburgh that we have, right? Where I get to the point where I say that we know folks say we got two Pittsburghs, but I say we got Pittsburgh where half the people are living like the Flintstones and the other half are living like the Jetsons, right? And a lot of times the people who are living like the Flintstones look like me, right? And so I want to be able to use my position currently as your state representative as a sphere of influence to change the realities of struggle for people, whether that's around education and improving the education formula so that our students have a quality education, whether that's around housing policies to put forth anti-displacement strategies in our communities, because we know that a lot of times what's happening in our neighborhoods, when you look at the recent census and the redistricting and why our districts look completely different than they did 10 years ago, because a lot of people left the city. And what's happening is that we are ethnically cleansing our communities through the means of economics. And we need to be able to change that. And I will do that and continue to do that as your state representative. And so I just humbly ask that when you think about the future of this district, that you think about me, you think about voting AAA for state representative, and I humbly ask for your support and your vote for re-election on May 17th. I encourage you to either vote in person on May 17th or vote early by mail. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
very much. Now let's hear from Reverend Glenn Grayson, Democrat.
Good evening. I promise not to take a text. I know we just finished Resurrection Sunday or Pastor Plate, but I'm honored to be here tonight to share with you my heart, my thoughts. The first question came up to some degree around violence, a real issue, especially as it plagues the African American community. I'm grateful that on this same weekend, we took 12 young people from Pittsburgh, from the Hill District, and surrounding community, young kids to do a service project through Amazaji in Puerto Rico. And so while they were there on the last day, they were saying how much they were missing this party, but they are now grateful, and say amen, that they could have been dead, but they were exposed. And how we play a role in it's hard to cure violence is that we need to expose our young people to more positive options and alternatives. And so I was grateful that they were able to see another area, to do a service project, to plant a micro forest, to save a community that was taken away from them. And so that's the type of exposure that we need for our young people as one option of alternatives. And even this morning, I shared with about 100 men who stood with a proclamation that started by Mark Brittany in terms of our taking dads going to school with your children. And I didn't go because I was running. I didn't go because I was on the program. But for over the years, when I see a cause that makes a difference, that makes an impact, I've always been front and center. So I offer myself because I am known as a hands-on person. As I look over the audience, I see many people who know me as Reverend Grayson. They know me as a person who leads the four corners of his church. John Wesley coined the phrase that the world is my parish. And since I've arrived in Pittsburgh 25 plus years ago, the whole entire city has been my parish. You've been able to see Reverend Grayson hands-on, making a difference, making an impact, seeing not problems, but trying to find solutions every day. And that's what I've been doing, that's what I can continue to do, to find solutions every day. How do we make a difference? How do we find employment for men and women? A good example, I started a program. We started with 4 employees. Now we have over 50 employees who make livable wages, y'all. I wish I had a little bit of help up here. Livable wages. And making a difference, impacting the lives of others. That's the things we have to do. I have a proven record of making a difference, of making a change, of being on hands-on, to stand up to injustice and equality. A good example. Yes, look at all those lives that were affected and taken this weekend by our young people. But we have a similar situation where after that happened, millions of dollars was employed to that community. Oh, y'all missed it. I said millions of dollars, y'all, was employed to the community. Resources and support and counseling was provided to those families immediately. And that's the difference we have to be conscious of making a difference when we see injustices and inadequacies. It's time to make a change. I have been standing against change from the day I landed. It's in my DNA, it's who I am, and I will continue as your next state representative, the 19th district, vote for Glenn Garrett Grayson as your next state representative on May 17th. Thank you for this time.
I'm just going to ask the organizers, I know we have at least one other candidate that will be joining us. Maybe we could get an extra chair for now so we can get that out of the way. The next race is State Representative for District 20. Please welcome Emily Kincaid.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for your time. I represent the 20th District, which is changing a little bit and moving further north. But fundamentally, I'm running for re-election because the work isn't done. I ran for election for the first time in 2020. I've served 16 months in office, and we're not close to done yet. We have so much work left to do to help our communities. I ran initially because I saw a need that our communities did not have a voice. We didn't have somebody in Harrisburg who was advocating for the kinds of things that we needed. We are facing blight and gentrification, and we have underfunded schools, and we have such a critical need to support so many of our most vulnerable citizens, and we're not doing it. And so I ran because I am a lawyer by training, and I am trained to advocate for people. I am trained to stand up and say, this isn't right. We need to do it differently. We need to do better. And so that is what I brought to Harrisburg, and that is what I have been doing for the last 16 months. I have spent the previous 15 years advocating for a lot of the policy changes that we need to see in Harrisburg, the changes that we need to invest in. And fundamentally, here's the issue. Right now, we were given $7 billion by the federal government, and we had a surplus of $3 billion on top of that. And we are not spending it to help people. It is sitting in our bank accounts. We are not spending it to help people. People are suffering unnecessarily, and we could do so much more. We could support our frontline workers. We could address food insecurity. We could help to address our toxic schools. We could support our teachers. We could invest in the direct support professionals that are serving our most vulnerable population. And we need more people in Harrisburg who recognize that that's where we should be spending our money. We shouldn't be giving tax breaks to oil companies and gas companies. We shouldn't be giving more money to corporations. We should be helping our most vulnerable people. Fundamentally, the government is here to serve you. The government is not here to make a profit. It's not here to run as a business. It is here to serve constituents. It is here to serve the people. And if we are not doing that, then we need to be doing better. We need to be sending people to Harrisburg who understand that. And that is why I'm running for re-election, because I understand that. And what we really need are people in Harrisburg who understand that what happened on Sunday cannot happen again. We are failing our children by allowing them to live in a world where they can gather and have fun and make mistakes even, and still face deadly consequences for it. Neither of those boys should be dead today. No one should have been hurt at that party. But we have done nothing to address gun violence at the state level, and in fact, we are going in the wrong direction. We are moving bills that are allowing permitless concealed carry rather than addressing ghost guns and lost and stolen weapons. We're not making people report that when they lose or their gun is stolen. We're not making them take responsibility for that. We're not instituting emergency removal protective orders for people who are a danger to themselves and others. We're not doing that. We are going in the wrong direction. And if reelected, I will continue to fight for those kinds of laws, because that is how we change things. We need to invest in our communities. We need to establish better economic circumstances. We need to help people with housing. We need to help people get jobs. And we need to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So now we're going to move on to Pennsylvania State Representative candidates. Democrat Lena Story for the District 24.
Hi, my name is Joanne Story, and I believe a lot of people may know me as no justice, no peace. Well, I'm fighting, I'm trying to go to the next level, whereas this justice, I'm fighting for justice and peace. And the reason why I'm doing that is that all these years that I've been fighting on these here streets and helping people and even volunteered at NAACP, and we locked up police officers and correctional officers and things like that. There still haven't been no bills, and there still haven't been enough to help people that's wrongly incarcerated. There still haven't been enough educational means for our children. And because there's not enough educational means for our children, that's where the gun violence is coming from. There's not, you have all these areas in Homewood, the Hill District, and so forth that's empty. You know, there's grass. I mean, there's new houses being built up and things like that. Those new areas that's empty and vacant, those could have factories or that they can employ or people that's in the community. I'm tired of going around in the community and you see people working on the street, construction and stuff like that, and there's no black people that's working at all. Maybe a flag person. And then we give money to these organizations that say they're helping us and they're helping themselves. So I want to go and I want to fight for our people. I want to see something done. I'm tired. It's been over 50 years now and I've been waiting. And a lot of things has been done, but not enough. And that's why I want to take my time and my 24 hours a day and work for you. And I'm still saying no justice and no peace. And I can't hear you. No justice. I want to hear you say no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. I want to fight for justice, and I want to fight for peace. And I want so much for our people. And that's why I'm putting myself out here for us.
Next up for District 24, Latasha Bays.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for being out here tonight. I mean, you could be anywhere else on a cold, rainy evening, but you're here because you care about this community. You're here because you're committed to raising your voice on Election Day and being an inspiration for those in your family and in your community to vote on May 17th in this election. Before we begin, I would want to just start by saying that if you're not feeling heartbroken by the violence in our community, if you're not feeling that enough is enough, if you're feeling hopeless, those are some of the things that I'm feeling today. And feeling like change can't come in spite of all of our best efforts. But we have to remember all those that we lose every year in this community to all kinds of violence. To gun violence, to police violence, to gender-based violence. We have to look at it all. And its roots in poverty, its roots in gender-based oppression, its roots in racism and white supremacy. If we're not willing to do that, then we're not really actually trying to address the problems of violence in our community. I just want to say that may Matthew and Jaden Brown rest in peace. And that this affects us all, even though it affects us differently. But we should be heartbroken, but that's not enough. When we grieve and we mourn, it has to be driven by action. And that's action to change our policy and legislation, and it's action to change the culture of violence in our communities. It's action to change all of the systems of oppression that continue to put Black people specifically in this situation, where we disproportionately experience violence every day today in our communities. And so we are mourning them, but we have to act by addressing gun violence in our legislation in Harrisburg, by expanding trauma-informed interventions, as well as investing in safe social spaces for our young people. But for me, I've worked with Black mothers for 20 years. Can we even imagine what they feel when they lose their children? And so there are resources out there, resources I've created. One of them is the Say Her Name Justice Fund for Black mamas and femmes and girls and women and gender-expansive people who experience these kinds of tragedies to get the direct supports that they need. So this is the work I've been doing for a long time in this community. As founder of New Voices for Reproductive Justice, I know that's what many of you are familiar with in terms of my work and leadership as a servant in this community. But I've been a long-time organizer and public servant, and I'm running to disrupt politics as usual. Come on now. I'm running to unapologetically fight for racial justice, for gender justice, and for economic justice. I'm running because the fight to defend our health and to defend Roe v. Wade and reproductive justice is in Harrisburg. The fight to protect our most vulnerable communities, including our youth, is in Harrisburg. And the fight, one of the greatest fights of our generation to protect our climate, is in Harrisburg. I'm the most progressive, experienced, and impactful leader in this race. I'm a passionate local, statewide, and national leader who has been doing this work right here in Pittsburgh for 22 years. So the work I have done is I served as president and CEO of New Voices for Reproductive Justice that started right here in this city. That became a statewide organization and also a national organization. And in that time was able to make significant progress around the Affordable Care Act and its implementation, ending the shackling of pregnant incarcerated women, advancing Black maternal health, and fighting for voting rights. I served on the Governor's Commission for African American Affairs and the county's Human Relations Commission. So thank you for your time this evening. And my name is Latasha D. Mays, and I ask for your vote on May 17th. Thank you so much.
Another event coming up in the community we'd like you to be aware of is coming up this Friday at 6 p.m. at the Northside Partnership Project. That's located at 2610 Maple Avenue, thank you. That's coming up. These are special meetings to address the issue of the violence. Also running in the 24th District is Randall Taylor. Please welcome him.
How's everybody this evening? But before I say what I want to say, I want to recognize my friend, Lynn Freeland, who retired from us, unfortunately, who educated us and formed us for like 30 years. So why don't we give Lynn a big She always moderates these events for us. Very generous with her time. And so I'm running because I have been an advocate, I have fought on these issues, and an activist and an organizer, so unfortunately can't get into some of the spaces that a state representative can. And so I have led these fights in this city. I was a Penn Plaza resident. I led the fight that hundreds of people lost their homes, and we pushed affordable housing and gentrification to the top of the agenda in this city. I think it even led to the defeat of a mayor as well, the treatment of those folks. It was our group, the Penn Plaza Support and Action Coalition, because we continued to organize, and continued to work. Before the pandemic, we met every Monday, unless it was a holiday, to continue to work. Some of the work we did was exposing that 13% of the African American population was displaced out of the city in a 4-year period. That was us who put that in front of you, because you needed to know. And so, what I've offered, whether it's 12 years serving on Pittsburgh School Board, serving as Tim Stevens chair of the NAACP Education Committee, I've been a leader since I organized baseball games when I was 8 years old. And I have used that leadership with great sacrifice for you. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity. I thank God He put in my spirit that He wanted to see justice for these people. And I think I've been very effective. Whether it's a brand new school in Homewood, Faison Elementary School, or whether it's $26 million worth of renovations to Westinghouse High School, the first renovations to that school in 50 years, I did that for our children. And so, one of the things that I worked in that I was proud of was in the 90s. And we saw the wave of violence through the city. We saw Crips and Bloods. We saw kids in the 5th grade flashing signs. Where we had children who couldn't go to different neighborhoods. Oh, they can. Ask the kids. Ask the kids. Can they go to different places? Ask the kids when adults said, if you merge Wilkinsburg and the Westinghouse, there's going to be so much trouble. You ask the kids and said, you don't know anything about that. There was real work that went into that. It took a long time for us to do away. There's no Crips and Bloods in this town. But we do have the overwhelming amount of violence. And today I had an example of why I would like to be the state representative. Because all I could do was contact somebody I know at the foundations and say, hey, look, the best, just as quick fix is let's do some gun buybacks. Let's do $1 million gun buyback and see if we can get 10,000 guns off the street. And also I said, can you go back and convene some of the people who did that work, Mothers Against Violence, which were mothers who had lost their children to violence, who spoke to other parents. Convene, none of those people are still around. And our foundations really did lean into giving money to hire, we have one group, Rhonda Galloway, she's still here, she would love to come and talk about what she did with a girl to prevent girls from being in love with these gang members, because that was part of the problem. They thought it was hip and cool. Please let me know some minute, that's hard to clear my throat in 5 minutes. Okay. and so those are some of the things we can do, but the most unfortunate thing when I wrote to the person at the Pittsburgh Foundation is unfortunately we now as adults have to create safe spaces for our young people. That incident of 200 young people, and we must question what our police did or didn't do that night. Because you know when there's 200 or even 50 young people gathered, there's a high likelihood something unfortunate is going to happen. So as far as the violence part, we're in trouble in this state. Because these Republicans, I like to say it. We're in trouble. And the biggest thing I want to say in these last 30 seconds is the biggest amount of leadership I'm going to show in my life this November is I must get as many of our people to vote as possible. We are in danger of losing our democracy. We are about, don't ever think it won't happen, that we won't go back to second-class citizenship. Don't ever think that. I'm not going back to second-class citizenship. Even if I ain't even here no more, I'm not going back. But the one thing we must do is to vote, and encourage more people to vote.
Next up, candidate, also running for state representative in the 24th District, Martello Covington.
All right, Martello.
Good evening. Good evening, y'all.
Good evening.
My name is Representative-elect Martello Covington. I ran at both the special election and the primary election. So by this time next week, I will be a city state representative representing District 24. I was born and raised in District 24. I grew up in Homewood. My family started a nonprofit organization in the early and mid-90s to address gang violence. I was one of those young people that couldn't go to different neighborhoods. I couldn't wear Chicago Bulls pullover. I couldn't wear an LA Raiders jacket because of where I lived at. And now I'm one of those kids that's up here running for state representative. Community Empowerment Association, which is a nonprofit experiences in the Homewood area were started in our family's living room. We hosted healing circles for mothers that lost their children to gang violence, Sunday dinners, and Kwanzaa celebrations. Service to the community is my family's life mission. Service to the community is in my blood. It's all I've seen my entire life. I'm currently a football and softball coach for Homewood Community Sports, the vice president of the Young Democrats of Allegheny County, and I also am the first black vice president of the Young Democrats of Allegheny County for the past 30 years. And until February, I worked for 3.5 years for State Senator Jay Costa, who's the Democratic leader of the Senate. In addition to that, I'm a mentor and an uncle to a lot of young people. When we talk about gun violence, it's not just a platform point for me, it's my life. In December of 2020, 10 days before Christmas, we lost my 15-year-old nephew, Javon Wrighty, to gun violence. Months later, a young man that I've coached, that went by the name of Denzel Nolan Jr., also known as Buddy, was killed on New Year's Eve. I coached Buddy for 3 years, and just a couple weeks ago, the young man that was part of my program at Community Empowerment Association, Javon Wrighty, we call Day, was shot and killed at the corner of Homewood and Frankstown. I've buried so many of my babies. This is not just a platform point for me, this is real life. So when we talk about someone that's going to represent you, let's talk about somebody that's grieving with you. That wakes up in the morning and has to say my nephew's name and get you through the day. They understand you're going to have sleepless nights. And you're going to have time to be worried about young people. People are asking about why would you have 200 kids in a place? Because there's nothing for them to do. There's nowhere for them to go. We have to talk about investment. We have to talk about access. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do. Like my colleague Rep. K said, there's a lot of monies available that we need to make sure we're bringing it to our community. When I think about the 24th district, I think about East Hills, which has over 760 young people under the age of 18. And there's nothing to do in East Hills.
No recreation.
No recreation. The football team is gone. The basketball program is gone. We talk about investment, that's what we started. We saw the broad daylight violence that was happening in East Hills. So let's start there. Let's make sure we're plugging in with the community in East Hills. Let's make sure that we're having opportunities for our young people beyond summer jobs. Let's talk about access, getting on pathways to careers, getting money in their pocket, making sure they're part of the unions or learn about trades, because everybody's not going to go to college. College ain't for everybody. So what about those young people? I see I have 1 minute left, but I'm passionate about this, y'all. I say this to y'all, I could have died more than once. That party that was over not too far from here, I was a party of that, I was at a party like that when I was in college. I understand the PTSD that you live with and the survivor's guilt that you'll have being in a space like that. We gotta talk about mental health. We have not talked about mental health, y'all. We have to normalize mental health. We have to increase the access to mental health. And that's one of the focuses I want to do. In my last 30 seconds, we're going to talk about legislation for gun laws, extreme risk protection orders, and at the national level, a national gun registry. This can't be done, but it's going to take all of us. But we can't be afraid, y'all. Once again, my name is Martello. I'm asking you to re-elect me on May 17th. Thank you.
Congressional candidates, and starting with Jeff Woodward, Democrat.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Woodward. I'm running for Congress for the 12th Congressional District. We all talk about the gun violence that took place and all the lives that have been lost over this past weekend. We often forget about that there was, besides that shooting that took place on the north side, that there was also a shooting in Duquesne. There was a shooting in East Hills. There was a shooting on the west end. There was more lives lost that weekend, shall I say, this past weekend, than the ones we hear about all the time with those kids. Then there was also another shooting on the south side that afternoon, in which 4 people pulled out guns and started shooting at each other. Again, Instead of most of us talking about defunding the police, we need to fund the police. We need better training, not defunding, better training.
Better vetting.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we need. Therefore, that's what I'm going to fight for, is more funding for our officers and more training for officers. Why am I running for office? You know, my journey began when I was 17 in Erie. I ran for school board at age 17. I'm one of 21 children, 11 girls, 10 boys. My dad was a Baptist preacher, mother's a homemaker. And I started working on a campaign, shall I say, at age 14 for Erie, Lewis J. Tulio, mayor there, Tom Ridge, a Republican, and we ran for Congress, then governor. I moved here to Pittsburgh in 1993 and been here in the same place in Oakland since then. I've earned my associate's degree in criminal law, bachelor's degree in philosophy, master's in business, and master's in criminology. Moved on to teach at CCAC, criminal justice, and at Robert Morris, philosophy. I've worked for the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, Catherine Baker Knoll. I've worked for the City of Pittsburgh, Commission on Human Relations. I've also worked for Pennsylvania College Access Program, in which we founded in 22 years ago, and I've been the executive director for these past 22 years. Past 22 years, we've put 18,000 young students in college. They're now doctors at Johns Hopkins. They're working for U.S. government and the Department of Commerce, Labor, and all over the country. They asked me, why am I running for office? You know, I've worked on so many campaigns and been the campaign manager for numerous people, including Ed Gainey, when he first started his journey as state representative, campaign manager for senators, governors, congressmen, and they all have been elected. Some have lost the race. But everyone kept on telling me, it's not your time. You should wait. I'm now 53. It's tired, and I'm tired of waiting. I paid my time, served my dues, and I'm running for U.S. Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, Steve Irwin.
Everyone, we're only 2 people away. Thanks for being patient here for the last hour and a half. This has been fantastic. For incredible, great ideas for moving our region forward. I know it says surrogate. I'm the real Steve Irwin. I'm the guy who saw the commercial in the guy playing the board, and I didn't bring it tonight. Thanks. I'm grateful for that. Why am I running for Congress? I'm running for Congress because we have real problems in our country and our planet here in this region. On Friday, I marched with a number of people from Homewood through East Liberty because of Day, a young child who was killed at the age of 15. And it was a beautiful, bright day, and we saw hope and vision and possibility. And the next day, we all know what happened. I was the cantor at the Tree of Life Synagogue, where we lost 11 Pittsburghers, 6 of whom I knew well. My children, no kids, we've talked about this litany of folks who've been killed in between. My kids, everyone's only 1 degree of separation. This has to stop. It has to stop. But we have many problems, many problems. We have problems in our healthcare system. It's broken. We have a mental health crisis with our children, with our parents, with ourselves, caused by the pandemic, caused by the fact that we don't have people who you can see if you have a problem. And if you can't afford to get the help, and the help's not even there even if you could. We have people who aren't covered. We don't cover our eyeglasses, you can't see. We don't cover our teeth, how can you eat? We don't cover our drugs, how can you help yourself even if there's a cure for the problems that you've got? We've got to change the system. We've got to get a single-payer system. We have to have universal coverage. Why am I running? I'm running because we have an infrastructure problem. But the infrastructure problem is an access problem. We can't get to school. We can't get to our jobs. We can't get to our doctors. Not everybody has a car. We have broken bridges. We have broken sewers. We have a city that was built 120 years ago. We can't fix it ourselves. We need help from the federal government. We have a democracy problem, a big one, and it's going to get bigger over the next 2 years. We have a voting rights issue that's really big. We've got to pass that John Lewis bill. We've got to stop voter suppression. We have to make sure that everybody who is 18 can vote and can get to the polls, and if they can't, they get a ballot that's sent to them so they can get it in. Everyone has to vote. So we have these big problems, and we can go on about more, but why me? Why am I qualified to be our next congressperson? Let's go through the things that we just talked about. First of all, healthcare. I'm the immediate past chair of the Pittsburgh Regional Health Initiative, where we've worked for addressing maternal perinatal inequality, where we've addressed the AIDS epidemic, where we've addressed medical error, the third largest cause of death, which falls predominantly on people of color. How about infrastructure? Before I came to Pittsburgh many, many years ago, I worked for 5 years in the United States Senate. I was an appropriations staffer. I got the money, I was on the team, I worked for a senator, I didn't get the money, but I was on the team. My responsibility was to get the funding for the Martin Luther King Busway, the LRT in Pittsburgh, bridges, roads. That was my job. I know the Senate, I know how to get things done in Washington. I know Pittsburgh. I'm the longest serving board member of Big Brothers Big Sisters. My little's 52 years old. So I know infrastructure. I know healthcare, I know voting rights. I'm the chair of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission for Pennsylvania. I was appointed the chair after serving for 20 years. And we've addressed housing discrimination. And we've addressed school-to-prison pipeline. And we've addressed minority and women business opportunities. I've served in government, more government experience than everyone in this race combined. I know this community like the back of my hand. I love it. I believe that we can solve these problems. The question is, who can help President Biden make progress and make a real change for people who live in this region? And based on my experience, I believe that I'm the right person for the job at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Continuing the conversation with a focus on the U.S. congressional race in the 12th District is Jerry Dickerson.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jerry Dickinson, and I'm a constitutional law professor at the University of Pittsburgh. But statistically speaking, I shouldn't be here tonight in front of you as a candidate for Congress. I was born here in Pittsburgh, born to a black father and a white mother. Both were far too poor and too sick to take care of me. My father was sentenced by a judge here in Pittsburgh as a criminally insane and sent off to a faraway place. My mother struggled with schizophrenia and she too was sent off to a faraway place. I was placed in the Allegheny County foster care system at a very early age. I bounced around in some shelters and I landed in a foster home in Shaler Township. A couple from McKeesport had moved out from McKeesport to Shaler, opened up their small ranch house as an at-risk emergency foster shelter, where 11 kids, including me, landed. White kids and black kids, teenagers and toddlers, all coming from broken homes and tragic circumstances, including mine. And the foster parents did all they could to take care of us, gave us warm clothes, food, a roof over our head, but sometimes trauma, neglect, and abandonment is too much to overcome. Take my brother Jamal. I spent the last 20 years inside prison walls visiting him, and on the outside of those prison walls, dragging him into rehab centers. 2.5 years ago, his son, my nephew, was shot and killed by police here in Pittsburgh. And that broke my brother and our family in ways that prison never could. Take my brother Irish, my white foster brother. About 5 years ago, I was down at SCI Somerset visiting him. The warden allowed me to come into the prison. They unshackled my brother. For the first time in 10 years, I had a chance to actually hug my brother. Now, even though we aren't blood brothers, We're brothers and we're bound by the grace of God. Take my brother Chuck, one of my white foster brothers. We lost him to opioid overdose about 4 years ago in Wood Street Commons in downtown Pittsburgh. I remember the police calling me to let me know about that incident. And my sister Tuffy. She was evicted from public housing in Northview Heights about 10 years ago. Didn't have anywhere else to go here in Pittsburgh but a rundown trailer park on the other side of the city of Pittsburgh because of lack of affordable housing. This is where I come from. This is my world. And I'm not that much different than my brothers and sisters. I've been assaulted by a police officer before. I spent a night or two in a county jail. I've dealt with trauma, but somehow I made it out okay. I got good grades. I went on to become a Division I athlete in college. Became a Fulbright Scholar of Johannesburg, South Africa, to represent squatters in inner city slums of Joburg with lawyers during the apartheid era. Came back here to Pittsburgh to fight for police reform. Now, as a civil rights lawyer, I represent tenants in eviction proceedings. Conduct fair housing work for the elderly and disabled, and teach about the fragility of our Constitution. But my proudest accomplishment is none of those things. My proudest accomplishment is my two girls, Aria and Maya. And so when I'm looking at the world that those two little girls are growing up in, I think about the insurrection of January 6th of 2021. I'm thinking about the world that those two young girls have grown up in as the least livable region here for African American women in Pittsburgh, right here. When I'm looking at the world that those two young girls have grown up in, at any moment a bridge in Pittsburgh could collapse due to failed government. That's the world that my two daughters have grown up in, and that is what has inspired me and motivated me to run for Congress. To work on behalf of those who have less than, to work on behalf of those who are treated as less than, because that is who I am and that is where I come from. As I said at the beginning, statistically speaking, I should not be here right now. But I'm here. Now you probably know what I'm going to do when I'm down there in Washington, D.C. There's a number of things that need to be done, particularly with regards to gun violence and the epidemic of gun violence. As the next congressman here in Western Pennsylvania, I can promise you that I will be bringing millions of dollars in federal funding for community violence intervention programs and bring it right here to Pittsburgh so that we can train and we can educate our youth about gun violence so we can stop the incidents that we saw this past weekend. To bring mental health access resources here to Pittsburgh, to our public school systems. To bring trauma-related evidence-based resources to help our children in schools deal with trauma. To pass an assault weapons ban, to pass the George Floyd Act, and to bring justice. That is what I'm going to do. Thank you so much.
You know, I did officially retire in November, and it's nights like this that almost make me regret that decision. Because there's a lot going on in this region, and I don't know about you, but I'm glad to be here to hear all of this. Also running for Congress, William Parker.
Come on, Steve, don't run yet. Steve, I'm gonna get you back on the stage. See, he's running out. Look at him, he's running. That's my opponent right there. He's running. I took the stage and phew, he's out of here. But anyway, statistically speaking, I should be here because I'm fed up. I am fed up, and I'm feeling the feeling that most of you are feeling, and it don't feel good. Listen, I'm from here. I'm from the North Side. Right here, right place area, my granddad was William Parker. He had a real estate company right here. My uncle's Willie Stargell. I don't know if most of you know that. I was the first black male to enter the race for Pittsburgh Mayor last year. I led the way, but they didn't cover me. They didn't cover me. I led the way. I seen it was time now. Only thing was, Ed Gainey was perceived as someone who was more qualified. That's all it was. But hey, I ain't mad as long as we in here, right? Now check this out. my prayers and my condolences go out to the Jacob Brown family and the Steffi family, man, Steffi family. You know, I'm feeling for them. But why does this violence keep occurring? Because we have to increase our value. We don't have any value. And you know why we don't have any value? It's because we don't have any black businesses here. We need to increase our black business ecosystem. I don't hear nobody come up on the stage and say it's time to address our black business ecosystem. They don't want us to be the bosses here. They want us to be the workers. And guess what? The support for the unions has silenced the support for our black businesses. We gotta make a change. This is the candidates. You know, I've seen a little commotion up here a little earlier, and I apologize for that. Unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of candidate suppression. You know, I deal with it. This guy right here, he's one of my opponents too. He challenged my signatures, but he failed. That's right, Jeff Woodward, he failed. And I'm here to say that God wanted me to be here. And I'm here, and I'm standing up for the people, because like I said, I'm fed up. I'm fed up. That's what I'm talking about. We gotta make a change, and we gotta make this change today. You know what I mean? But let me say this to my black people. Listen, when you see somebody like myself, because look, we don't see too many young people in here, right? And that's a problem. We gotta get them engaged. I'm out here in the community. I wear the hat. And I'm walking like I talk it. There's too much money coming out of the federal government right now. $1.7 trillion in infrastructure funding. And I want to make sure that that money goes to our black businesses. We need to get these brothers certified so they can be the contractors on these sites, helping us to rebuild our bridges. That's right. But we need somebody. To my black people, like I said, when someone like myself, when you see them, listen, we gotta get behind them. We gotta stop holding each other back. I might not be someone who you've seen before. But that don't mean I ain't out here doing the work, because look, the ones who's really out here doing the work, they don't want you to know about it. They want to keep us hidden. But guess what's changing that? Technology. Technology, and that's what I'm an advocate for. Technology. That's another thing. It's booming right now in technology right here. Right on the north side, there's a place called Innovation Works. They operate like a Shark Tank. If you got an idea for an app, if you got an idea for any type of systems, robotics, go over there. They're giving out $100,000 investments. Tell these young brothers, don't just be on this phone all day scrolling. Think of what you could create. And don't think because you're older that you can't be a part of this ecosystem. You got ideas. We all got ideas. When do we stop thinking? Yes. I'm the candidate. I'm running for Congress. And I'm going to win this. I'm going to win. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Second, vote for Will Parker. That's my handle. You can follow me under Vote for Will Parker. You know, and I want to say thank you to Lindsay Freeland, because she did have me on her show to talk about my black business. And that's what we need. More people like her to cover black entrepreneurs in this city. Because ain't nothing going to change if we don't increase our value. Thank you.
We have a couple of events that are coming up we want to tell you about, I'm going to let Chandy start with that.
So if you enjoyed what you heard and saw tonight, you're invited to the next Meet the Candidates event. It's at St. James Anglican Church, 444 Lincoln Avenue, that's in Pittsburgh, and it is from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Again, that's another Meet the Candidates event, May 9th, 6 o'clock until 8:30 p.m. at St. James Anglican Church.
That date?
May 9th.
May 9th. And don't forget, there are two events. One is tomorrow. One is tomorrow, there's a special meeting on violence, it happens Wednesday, April 20th. It's going to be at 2 p.m. at the Allegheny Center Alliance Church, that's located at 250 East Ohio Street. And there's an event on Friday, this coming Friday, April 22nd. That is at 6 p.m. at the Northside Partnership Project, which is located at 2610 Maple Avenue.
And a little bit more about that event that Lynn just talked about. It's a community gathering, it says, hosted by the Northside Partnership Project in collaboration with Parents Against Violence, Garden City Church, Cary Hilltop, Bayview Citizens Council, Positive Impact Program, National Council for Urban Peace and Justice, Ceasefire PA, and this will have Pittsburgh Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. With everything that's been going on, especially in Pittsburgh, this is an event if you want to support the entire.
B-pep and CAB also.
B-pep wasn't on here, sorry. B-pep, what? Political Empowerment Project, can't forget that.
Let me also mention that many of the candidates put their information on tables out in the lobby. So if you want to get more information, you want to find out their websites, contact information, take advantage of that. It's out in the lobby. And the other thing is, I can't stress what Randall Taylor said. The bottom line is the election's coming up May 17th. You got to vote. You got to take somebody with you. I don't know about you, but I'm excited seeing this panel of folks up here representing our communities, representing our issues, but it only counts if we vote.
Thank you. Pastor D, would you please join me? Mr. Tim Stevens, Ms. Lorraine, Ms. Judy, Lead Winner Voter, VEEEM, and VEEEM. Sorry, don't got no teeth, y'all. Sorry about that. My name is Javon Wrighty. I am with the National John Lewis Coalition. I am a community organizer here in Pittsburgh. And my team is back in the back. Would you please stand up? Ms. Trish Parker. Doug. Okay. All right. Ms. Summerlee, just give us a second, please. Pastor D, Mr. Tim Stevens, Ms. Judy, Ms. Lorraine. We're going to step back for just a second and let Ms. Summerlee do her presentation, but I'll give you space. Thank you.
Summer, just so you know, in addition to the questions that we're giving you guys ahead of time, why you're running, who you are, we've asked every candidate to reflect or accept publicly and the reasons are inspired.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm Summer Lee, and I'm currently a state representative, representing the 34th district. I've been a state representative for the last 4 years in our brand because we have pressing issues in communities like ours, but rarely did we have people who were impacted and who had lived experiences and the policies that were being pushed through government in those spaces. I'm running right now because we have such an incredible opportunity here. Right now, all over this country, we are facing many crises. Many of them that we experience, and we're hit hardest and first back, right? So whether it's racial justice or our housing crisis, economic justice where we haven't had our wages raised in decades. We're looking at our COVID crisis that people are ignoring, but is still here and raging and still disproportionately impacting certain communities. As we're looking at the threats to our democracy. Right now, we have a need for people who are going to fight like they know how urgent these moments are. This is going to be a D+15 district. There are going to be a lot of folks who talk about what we can and what we cannot have. They're going to talk about whose political needs can be centered and whose political needs we have to continue to push to the side, that we have to keep waiting for tomorrow. I'm running right now because we deserve to have the political needs of Black and brown folks, of working class and poor folks, of people of all religious backgrounds, of urban and suburban folks, we can center those political needs. And that's what we're running for. We can say that Pittsburgh no longer has to have the worst air quality in this country. We need folks who are going to fight for our climate like they fight for the corporations. We need to look at the gun violence that has been plaguing communities like ours for decades, for years. When I first ran, and Ms. Linda asked me the question, when I first ran in 2018, I was invited to my high school, my old high school, and the kids there were putting on a memorial program, a Stop the Gun Violence rally. And there was, in the middle of the floor, they had 15 chairs, and the 15 chairs had pictures on it. It was the 15 kids who we had lost from this one school district, our one school district, over 4 years. And we've lost more kids since then. Gun violence is going to be one of those issues that impacts every single one of us. None of us are going to escape that. And we're not going to escape it until we are approaching it at every level of government, at every level of our society, at every institutional level. We need a coordinated effort to fix this, which means that we have to look at the problem as it is. It is a public policy failure. Gun violence is a public policy failure. And even as we see a rash of mass shootings in the country, we still don't get our government talking about the type of gun violence that we experience, the type of gun violence that our kids are experiencing. But I ran because I know and I believe that if we are really going to do something about both public safety and gun violence, then we have to talk about the investments and the priorities that we have at every level of government. If we want to address this gun violence, we have to talk about why in certain communities we have kids who are growing up in blighted houses, in blighted communities, houses that have lead and asbestos, houses that have no transportation in and out of those communities. But to talk about the job opportunities that our community members have. Because if you have no community economics, what is the economy of your community going to be? But drugs. If we have no other jobs coming into our communities. We have to talk about our education system, why in the wealthiest country on earth, we don't have an equitable education system. You should get a free quality education irrespective of your zip code. We have to talk about what opportunities our kids have, and we have to ensure that they have them. Which means that at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level, we need to invest in our education system, in our housing, in our transportation, in healthcare. We need to invest directly into our community disruptors, invest directly into our community institutions, our libraries, our community centers. We have to invest in our educators and our parents. We have to create opportunities for them. We have to make sure that they don't have to leave their communities to get jobs and to get access. That's why I'm running for Congress, and that's what we should have on May 17th when we show up to vote. Thank you so much.
We want to say thank you, everyone, because it's our voice, our vote. It matters. We're in this together. What affects one affects us all. I'm going to say to each and every one of you, make sure that everyone that you know get registered and vote. Our vote, our voice. I'd like to give a shout out to our co-sponsor, which is the John Lewis Coalition Transforming Justice, B-pep, the League of Women Voters, Pittsburgh High Ground Ministry, and VEEEM. Without them, we wouldn't be here. I'm going to say to our candidate, blessing, good luck. Thank you for stepping out to serve, because we need more people to serve than to be on the other side being served. Did you hear what I said? Okay? I'm going to say to you all, remember, we've come too far. Ain't going to let nobody, what? Turn me around. Come on. Turn me around. What you say? Come on. Let nobody turn me around. I'm going to keep on walking, keep on talking. All right now.
Good evening. Ladies, to our moderators. Good to see you. Thank you all the candidates that came out.
foundation. But I also want to say thank you to the APA, which is the Alliance Police Accountability, the Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly. Also want to say Urban League, Greater Pittsburgh, Empowering Opportunities, Change Lives, and NAACP. We heard a lot of things said today, but let me say this, as a pastor of the church. The church started with 9, and we've only been birthed since 2019. But I've always had my boots on the ground. And opening our new church door this spring, we're buying Riverview Presbyterian Church. It's public knowledge. I need you all to know that we're not going to preach what tickles the air. We're going to preach to build families back together. I cannot stand at the pulpit and give you some fluff. This violence starts at home. They always say my name. No, say your address. You're the first teachers. You're the first judge. You're the first DEA, police officer. Start at home. Say your address. Whatever your address is, start talking to these young people. Make rules in your house and follow them. All I'm trying to tell you is, you gotta have a quarter in this dog. As parents, grandparents, aunties, cousins, and uncles, and quit giving our kids the drugs to sell on the street, you know who you are.
What I'd like to say is a shout out to Mrs. Ted Little for being our gracious host here. Every time we come, we open up the door. So that's what we need to start doing for each other. And also our gracious host here, facilitator. Shout out. Give yourself a round of applause. Sister Kim Harold, thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sister Kim Stevens.
We want to thank all the volunteers from the various organizations who are in the house. Give them a hand too, who help organize, mobilize. And as we leave, I want you to leave with this. The mission, as many of you know, of B-pep is that we vote in each and every election. The mission of all of us is that we vote in each and every election. And I want you to remember that there are people in Pennsylvania, there are people in this Commonwealth, there are people in the city of Pittsburgh, there are people in this nation who would love black people to never vote in any election. We want to put that, take it out of your mind. Vote May 17th, register by May 2nd. If you haven't registered tonight, registration forms are out right inside before you leave. Take a B-pep poster, yard sign, put it out front, put it on your street. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so I can bring you more videos on subjects like this and many other topics. Please leave any comments in the comment section. Any questions or comments, I'll get back to them as soon as I possibly can. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.